Hello and welcome to the On the Whistle podcast. My name is Alasdair Howorth and we've got a special treat for you today. Last month I carried out an interview with the Comorian legend that is Fouad Bachirou, who's obviously also formerly of PSG, Malmo FF, Ostersunds, Nottingham Forest for those of you with a more English inclination, and is currently playing Omonia Nicosia in Cyprus. I had a real brilliant chat to him about his time with the Comoros, in particular looking at his journey over the last kind of 9 years. He recently retired from the national team, and obviously we talked about that sensational performance in the AFCON last year when they beat Ghana and knocked them out at the AFCON. I did the interview initially for a written piece, which is why the quality of the video and audio isn't amazing. But we thought it was such a good interview that actually we turned it into a podcast. And so, without further ado, this is Fouad Bachirou. The Comorian parents, how did that happen in terms of you becoming a player for the national team, and what was that? Kind of tell me a bit about that journey.
Well, like you said, I was born in France, grew up in France. First, my first relationship with Comoros is through my parents, and I've been lucky enough when I was young. So we tried to go every 2 years for the summer holiday. So I got that chance to have a bond with Comoros really early. So I think my first time when I went, I was 6 years old. So then every 2 years I used to go until I got until the academy of football. When I get to Paris Saint-Germain, it becomes difficult because obviously I need to be at the academy, so I didn't get my summer holiday.
Yeah,
it wasn't as big anymore. So I've went 3 times basically, and then since around I was 15, I haven't been until basically my first called up with national team. And he went through. So at the time, I was just living Scotland. Basically, I was in Scotland, playing in Scotland, and I just moved to go to Sweden. And Amir Abdou just becomes a coach, and I think him and his new staff decided to see all the Comoros player who were in Europe and try to gather everyone and to get as many players and try to build something. Previously that called up the national team having been playing, it was difficult to get like games going. Obviously, financially, it's become really difficult. There was a majority of players who were from Marseille who was going to the national team because it was easier because they knew the people who was
of course,
on the staff, so they knew each other all well. So it's like, oh, this guy plays there, we can go. For my case, I was in Paris. People didn't know me that much, and I moved to Scotland, so they didn't know me that much. And this was difficult. And then when Amir Abdou came, obviously he tried to gather all the information of all the players around the world. Doesn't matter like where you were playing or where from. And then that's how I got my first call up in 2014. We played a game down south Marseille against the Burkina Faso. And we drew 1-1. So that was like obviously an amazing experience already. Like, because we have a big community in Marseille of people from Comoros. So the atmosphere was already incredible. And that's something obviously I loved straight away. And from there, we got all the way to here.
And that's a remarkable result as well, because that was a good Burkina Faso team as well. Like, it's remarkable.
It was actually a really good team. I remember they did the Charles Caboret, the Traoré brothers. We only knew each other as the players because there was a lot of new players. We only knew each other for like less than a week. So actually, like, played a good game. Obviously, you could feel like the adrenaline, the excitement, So tactic didn't matter that much at that time because we didn't have time for anything else. But we just played on the adrenaline. And the good thing is, well, we all have like a base of like understanding football from the academy in France, so we understand the same thing. And so we just managed to just put it into the game, all together, like individually, and you managed to do something collective really, really good. So at the end, we celebrated like it was a win. Like it was
Yeah.
like all the fans came down on the beach. We were jumping everywhere. Like it felt like that was like a big win, like because we still meant so much for the country who haven't been playing for so many years. Having difficulty now, managed to get the best player
Yeah.
around Europe, all together, and then perform well against a team who's been playing for many years together, who's considered like one of the big team in Africa.
Mm.
So it was a big achievement already for us.
Yeah, and so that whole process was all driven by Amir. He was the one who was saying we need to get players from places that not just Marseille, or who kind of wanted to push for that kind of drive to get all of you in.
Well, that would be like he mostly from his staff as well. So the sport director at the time was like Mohamed Jamal, who's back being the sport director now, who's in the sport director of a team in France, is Martigues.
Mm-hmm.
So that was his idea also mostly. But obviously together with Amir Abdou and I would say all the staff, I think together they driving that decided like, okay, let's do something great here. Let's do something like let's try to do something really. Try to get as many players as we can and see them and give a fair chance to all the players. And see which one are the best really.
Yeah, and how did the team then develop for you, kind of over the next kind of 7-8 years to up to the AFCON? Did you feel like the team, because obviously, like you said, it's a brand new team and suddenly you're all playing together, how did things change from that first match in 2014 or whatever, all the way up to then kind of qualifying?
So yeah, that's what is remarkable, because I think we all grew a lot, and when I say all, I'm talking about the coach Amir Abdou, us, but obviously that was his first professional experience for Amir
Mm-hmm.
Abdou. Obviously he was in France, coaching amateur teams before, in the area, the region of Bordeaux, and came and take like a professional group. We were like, for some of us, most of us, we were professional footballers, so that was something new for him. And for us to work together, that was totally something new as well. So first, it was really uh, simple base, let's say, because we were just trying to defend.
Yeah.
So we had a really, really low block, and just try to defend, and try to hit and counter-attack. So we would work all week towards this. That was like really the tactic of Amir Abdou, really like to sit deep and try to hit teams and counter-attack. Because we had to understand where we at, like we had to understand like we were new in the world of African football, because playing in Europe is totally different from playing in Africa. And also understand like the profile of players we have. We are in general not that big, so it will be really difficult to find a big Comoros player. So that athletic part, we didn't have that in Africa, and so it was difficult at the start because we used to not be ready for like all those big drills, etc. So we had to understand her strength was more in the technical aspect, handle the ball well in small area and tight area, but we were not ready to really only focus on this. So first we just sit deep and just defend, try to get hard to beat, to get confidence. And then slowly, to start to get a bit more confidence, know each other better as well. And we start to grow to start to impose our style at home, where we become really difficult to play, because we still the pitch was small, was a grass turf as well. So for opponents, it was really difficult to handle.
Yeah.
And we would obviously get confidence and try to handle the ball better. And then like we start to have like some game. I think the one game, I think is in 2015, end of 2015, we play against Ghana at home. And this game ended up being 0-0, and we scored a goal in the 86, I think, something like this. But it's been ruled out for offside, and it was never offside.
Yeah.
That was like, I was not even clear to be offside, and that was like a World Cup qualifier.
Mm.
And I think this game was pretty much a turning point where we play against Ghana, so one is the giant of Africa, and performed so well, like did so well, and felt like we deserved to win because
Yeah.
obviously we got that on goal. So confidence wise, it gave us something. Like from there, I think like we started to really believe in ourselves, really grew up, and start to be more proactive onto the game. Like so try to control the game a little bit more. And then obviously we've seen teams like Morocco come into our place, Cameroon, and we haven't lost those games. Like also Kenya, etc. So the progress become big through the years until getting to African Cup Nation. We felt like we were really at the top of our like a game, knowing each other, understanding what we wanted tactically, what we were capable of, really.
Yeah, and tell me about the AFCON. What was that experience like for you guys? Like, and for you especially, kind of going to Cameroon. Obviously, you guys were drawn in one of the most like difficult groups, with three huge countries. What
Yeah.
was that whole experience like?
First, like qualifying to the AFCON was like the biggest emotion. I thought I could even leave. I've been fortunate to play Europe through my career. Obviously playing against Chelsea, Manchester United, and whatever. Like a lot of big team, and still qualifying and going to the AFCON nation. It was the top of the
Yeah.
emotion. What I got, yeah, really was like I didn't think it could be as big. Really, for someone who grew up in Europe. Dream of playing Europe.
Yeah.
I thought that was like the top of the top. Really, but qualifying for the AFCON was like something amazing. But then like going to the AFCON, getting there, seeing all the countries related, like all the atmosphere, people around like Comoros who were a poor country, but bringing that joy and seeing like people who cannot afford to get to the other side of the island was trying to get to Cameroon to watch the AFCON.
Yeah.
That was something like incredible already. And then obviously join Morocco, Gabon, and Ghana. That was like something else. It was amazing. But the feeling was just it's just different. I think it's really hard to describe. Like representing your country really at the biggest tournaments is like the biggest pride we could have get. Like really like the first game I remember. Unfortunately, in the first game, I just come back from COVID, so I didn't start the game because I came back. I just arrived in Cameroon the night before the game, but I came in at halftime. But like I didn't train for like more than 10 days before that.
Yeah. Oh,
But
that's tough.
that like but honestly, you couldn't. I could have played 120 minutes that
Yeah.
first game because the adrenaline, the emotion was just incredible. So I came in at halftime and I just played the game like I've been training every day and everything. I didn't felt anything because you just played on the adrenaline. You just represent your country. You are where you wanted to be. All those 8 years ago uh, when we joined national team, no one would believe we could qualify for an African Cup nation.
Yeah.
We were just already proud of just having a team, just be able to play a game.
Yeah.
That was a goal for us, just to make sure the national team of Comoros can play a regular football. That was the first goal. And then 6, 7 years later, you are in the AFCON, you qualify, you are there and like trying to qualify for the next round. And then we managed to qualify. That was like something else again, obviously beating Ghana. But we felt like, with the history we had with Ghana, that was something beautiful as well.
Yeah.
And obviously, no, it was just like the best emotion we could get, really.
No, 100%. I mean, even I remember watching it. It was like incredible just watching it and being a part. And then even I had friends from Comoros sending me videos of them after the Ghana game of just like going absolutely crazy, like fireworks, and
Exactly.
it
Yeah,
was just like the biggest party I've ever seen. It looked absolutely amazing. And then I think I kind of, how do you then look back on, because obviously you had that brilliant experience and then you have that game against Cameroon where it kind of, you have that kind of huge mess in terms of goalkeepers and like not being allowed for Ali Amada to play, etc. How do you reflect on that match and the kind of circumstances around it after that amazing Ghana game?
at the time, just coming out, obviously at the time was really tough to handle with it. It was really tough. Like I think all the emotion went through. Obviously anger, everything. Like try to understand what was going on. Now with time, obviously obviously in Comoros we are really religious. So we believe obviously everything happened for a reason. Obviously,
Mm,
God put us through this for a reason and wanted that game to go this way for a reason.
mm,
So obviously it was difficult to handle with at that time. Like was a lot of things like we felt was unfair. Obviously, the way of things being handled, the rules changing
yeah,
on the day of the game for certain team, but doesn't apply for others. So some was like it was unfortunately it has to be played that way. I think we would have deserved or at least to play in a fair game with like a goalkeeper. I think football should be that way anyway.
yeah,
At least with the goalkeeper. But it happened the way it happened. We still managed to play a really good game. I think show the world like give us that identity. I
yeah.
think that game show us, and I think that's why it was meant to be that way, because that game just reflects who we are from day one.
Mm,
That means we go through adversity, we we only shine through the difficulty, because that's the way we are. Like from the start, like I said, like we are a really poor country where we don't have a lot of uh, financial we have a lot of financial difficulty, in the daily life, and obviously, kind of imagine in football worlds,
mm,
we starting really from the bottom, but through this, we still managed to found a team, grow up with a team, qualify for the AFCON, qualify for the next round, play without a goalkeeper, get a red card after 6 minutes, and still keep going.
yeah.
So that's like I think that is like really the mentality of is that what defines our national teams? That what defines the people of Comoros in general? So like through the adversity, just try to go through it still, like not to complain too much about it and just go on with it and like just being grateful for what we've got and see how far we can go, and I think we did people proud, of our country. I know with a lot of people from Africa around the world and around the world uh, congratulate us for our faith and for our way of playing and our way of believing, and our attitude really. And that's something at the end when you reflect about it, that's probably one of the things I'm most proud of, like the way me and my teammates who we don't consider as each other like as a teammate, but like as a brothers, really, because we know each other for many years and we actually share everything. Really, we go on the phone pretty much every day together,
Mm.
and I think we could feel that on the pitch, and that's what took us that far, really. You know,
Yeah, I mean, I credit to you for being so gracious about that game because I think I would be so angry about how it turned out, and it was remarkable the performance, like you say, going down to 10 men, still pulling a goal back at the end, like
yeah.
making Cameroon kind of sweat towards the end, unbelievable. And kind of for you now, because you've now retired from the national team, what made you decide to kind of call it a day and kind of decide to finish your time with the team?
To be fair, like it was a really tough decision to take. Uh, I, I decided to retire for first of all, obviously, like I wanted to spend time as well with my family. I felt like is a good time, obviously, as well. Not qualifying for this AFCON was probably the main reason. I think like if we did qualify, I would have tried to keep going, try to play that competition
Yeah.
and see from there. But I couldn't see myself uh, starting a new chapter. I wanted to be fair to myself and to the team as well, to the national team, because I don't want to start. Obviously, now we're starting the qualification for the World Cup, uh, which the World Cup is not until 2026. I don't want to start something and not finish it.
Yeah.
I felt like that wouldn't be fair to me, and that wouldn't be fair to the national team, to my teammates or to my brothers. I felt like if I start now and call it in 1 year when you're in the middle of the competition, of
Yeah.
qualifying, I don't feel like that was totally fair. So I saw like now was a good timing. I think I got to a point where I gave a lot, and obviously the travels become difficult as well. With my career, I get to a certain age as well. Like I still feel I could have kept going. Physically is no problem, but obviously the travels become a little bit more difficult with the family, etc.
Yeah.
So I felt like it was the right time. I do find it difficult, against still today. I've seen the boys arriving to
Mm.
Comoros now, obviously for the next game and everything. So I still got that feeling, and
Yeah.
I'm wishing I was there. You know,
Yeah.
but yeah, I think it's fair. I think we have a new generation as well who's pushing. So I think it's time for them as well to try to impose themselves and do something or bigger, hopefully.
Mm. Yeah, absolutely. And when you reflect now you finished your time with the team, like how obviously there's been a huge amount of progress on the pitch. You think you weren't even playing games and then you got to the AFCON and, even in this AFCON qualifier, you had like a brutal group, but you still were competitive, with Ivory Coast and Zambia. Like, how do you reflect kind of how the structure of things and Comorian football is, from now or from 2014 till now? I know you guys obviously there were issues before the AFCON and you guys, released that statement as the players, how unhappy you guys were, around the Arab Cups and the kind of the national team. How do you reflect on how the state of like national football in Comoros is beyond the actual team itself? And, how do you feel like things have developed and progressed and they're in a strong position?
To compare it to my time when we started from 2014, there is progress. Of course, you cannot like deny that, because obviously the nature of football have make you progress even if you don't want to.
Yeah.
There is progress, but along the way, obviously, we released some statement. We shown her unhappiness on certain things. We believe there's still a major issue where is an issue could be dealt with sooner or better. There's still things where and is maybe get confused with and think it's like all about financial, and that is the point. It's not a financial issue. That's where if it was just a financial issue, we would be okay with it, because at the end of the day, we know where we're from, we know where we come from, we know what the situation in our country, we know the right. But the problem is actually not financial. The problem is more on the logistic, on the take like taking care of the players, on the progress of the football in general, of Comoros football, of the national team, of what we're gonna leave to our younger brother, to the next generation. And this is where we've been at time tough with the federation, but it's for to make sure those base to never get forget. We need a base manage to get to a certain point, and we don't want to go back. And I'm pretty sure the federation also don't want to go back.
Yeah.
But sometimes we had to go through those clash, those fights, those how do you say those moment where we're not on the same page to keep moving forward. We have to claim things. We have to remind things. To not be forgetting. So we could still move forward. And obviously, as every team, as every work, there's some dispute, there's some misunderstanding, there's sometimes lack of communication, there's some egos. So we just have to go through with it. But we did, I think, as a football, we managed, I think, like the previous staff now managed to establish, to put a good base into the structure of the federation, of the football, because I think we can acknowledge, for example, and that's where you see progress for me, is when you acknowledge we have in under 19, that things we could have never think about 7 years ago, etc. Now we managed to get this. We managed for those teams to play on the biggest tournament in age categories. That the tournament in France, where Cristiano Ronaldo been there, Messi, Fabregas, so giving that opportunity to a young brother, to play those tournaments, to already have that feel for the national team, wearing that shirt, preparing them to be the next generation who's going to take us to the World Cup. That is the goal for us.
Yeah.
To having those young players there, having a more structured women team, like all those kind of things, like getting the attention, getting sponsors in, that's what our goal is. Well, because at the end of the day, we represent Comoros around the world, so that's our duty to make Comoros known as a football. But if we can do more, if that football can reach other people to come and be interested of Comoros and maybe invest in Comoros, then we've done our job. And that's what we've been trying to do. That's what we try to push through those years, But for this, and in football, if you want to progress, you have certain rules we believe need to be we need to be firm to them. So that means like when you get something, when you get to a certain level, you cannot go back.
Yeah.
Or if you go back, if you're having too many setbacks, of course there will be some setbacks. But if you're having too many setbacks, then you can only fall behind, And we are not in a position where we can afford to do this, because like we said, we are a small country. Financial, we are not the strongest at all. So we need to fight. We need to be better on other things. We need to find out, okay, we cannot do it financially. We cannot compete. So let's try to compete somewhere else. So players make sure they're healthy, make sure they have a follow through to the club, make sure they go back to the club healthy, make sure they arrive in good condition. The traveling, make sure all those kind of things. That's where we need to be. That's where we need to be a little bit more picky. That's where we've been fighting for, to make sure to attract also players, because of course we all know we have some players who are still not sure of joining the national team.
Yeah, of course.
In Europe, who are like really good players who are like hesitating, and we all know why. Because they're like from the outside, they don't know what's going on, but they're thinking like, is that a really professional environment? So that's the question people are asking, and that was our job. Amir Abdou started it, ourselves took over to make sure that national team become professional, become as professional as the bigger team.
Yeah.
Of course, every big team can kind of in Nigeria or other team still could improve, So imagine if they can improve, how much can we improve?
Absolutely. And from that time, ahead of the AFCON, when you guys had to make that statement, have things changed from them? Do you think there is more professionalism, or is there still frustration that it's not being managed professionally, above the football team itself?
It's tricky. It's like, it's on certain thing, But some of the other things when we had, they felt like it's been a setback.
Yeah.
So they always been, oh, we're progressing here, but then we're falling back here. And
Yeah.
then we're progressing this way, and then we're falling back there. That's where the frustration has been, because
Mm.
when we felt like, okay, we don't need to mention this anymore because
Yeah.
this is
It's
done. We've
being
done
dealt
it.
with.
It's dealt with. But then a few months later or a year later, we realize, oh no, that is not done. We
Yeah.
need to constantly repeat things. And it's not a problem for us with the frustration, but if we know we have to do it, we do it.
Yeah.
But of course, it's so much energy. At the end of the day, we want to focus on being on the pitch and playing football.
Yeah.
And only this. But the problem was like we did and we do have to get out of sight, of the pitch on the side and do this because at the end of the day, it's our health,
Yeah.
it's our career. Because so many times we put our career under the line, for our national team, and that is the risk we're all willing to take.
Yeah.
But if we're willing to take, we have a right to 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 uh, to have that respect, to have that to be heard.
Definitely. And you don't have to tell me if you don't want to, but do you have any examples of ways in which like things haven't been dealt with professionally, or the kind of individual frustrations you've had over the years?
Obviously, I never hide it, and I think I made it. We made it clear on statement, and I made it clear on statement, and people know. So, like for example, the traveling situation is something that's been a problem since many years, and that's something we felt like we dealt with, and then we had some setbacks. So the traveling situation is like we are getting to the stage where we still sometimes, of course, it's not been, and there've been progress. I did say it, but still have to pay for our own flight.
Yeah.
Managing time because they haven't been dealt with, or there are many times where I came to the airport and I found out my ticket is not valid
Uh-huh.
because it haven't been confirmed or because it haven't been registered, so because an issue with this and this, and this is really frustrating because then you add stress, and I come back to my club tired and I get injured or whatever, and that's my place is on the line, it's my career on the line, our traveling instead of taking, because we don't deal with it earlier, I have to go around the world to go back to my club. And finish. I've got time to recover and be ready for my next game. I'm traveling all the way to this part of Africa, then to open north of Africa, and then to east of Africa, and then to get back to France, and then eventually to get back to my club.
Yeah.
There's a logistic we had to deal with for many years, where it's something again. Being anticipating things, and that do not require a big amount of financial.
Yeah. It's the professionalism.
Exactly. Organization, anticipation, and that's where we got really frustrated. That is like only one example of things,
Yeah.
Of things where we've been fighting and we still have fight. And after the AFCON, obviously the last year, some problems, some issue. I had some problems, some issue, but not as recurrent, not as often. That make a difference.
Yeah.
Last year, we have to say, it hasn't been as much. It's the professional needs to become better. There've been some really improvement on this. Obviously, the staff who was there control things much better with the condition they've been given to. Obviously, it wasn't easy.
Yeah.
But they managed to try to be organized, and there's been a lot of like self work, let's say. Obviously, you probably saw the last statements been made again and everything, and it's just about communication. Obviously, today things got sorted out, but direction we're going.
Mm-hmm.
Even though I'm retired, I'm including myself because I want the best for the national team, and also I was involved of those talk, everything, with like the president being one of the captain of the national team, obviously for many years and things. So I've still got involved, and I try to 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 leave a good heritage,
Of course.
to my brother, and to leave the best condition possible. I wouldn't want to rebuild something together for over 10 years and 9 years, and just because I decided to retire, I shouldn't care anymore and just put that aside. That's not what I want, or that's not what the national team represent for me. The national team will always be with me. In it or not, it will still be.
And like you say, like oftentimes the biggest progress comes from when you succeed on the pitch and then it's followed up off the pitch. I think of like Morocco and Algeria are great examples where, Algeria wins the AFCON, Morocco gets the semi-final of the World Cup, and suddenly they're able to be pulling these big name players from France that they would never have been able to before. But, that's because not only have they succeeded on the pitch, but then you've seen the professionalism and investment off the pitch, so now you have guys like Osam Awar, who is 5 years ago probably would never have wanted to play for Algeria because of those reasons. Suddenly he's desperate to play for them. And Guerrieri, I think, and even Morocco are stealing players from Spain at young age. So I think it's totally spot on. Like, doing well at an AFCON, it's not, that's not the peak. That's actually like the biggest platform for building that success off the pitch, and building that investment. I wanted to ask you a bit more about Coach Amir Abdou. What from your kind of sense of him, because obviously you joined at a very similar time, you left the team at a very similar time, a bit after. What was he like as a coach, and how has he changed from 2014 when he was in essence an amateur coach to now being a professional going and moving to a different country to take on both a different club and country.
It was like obviously like you said, we started together. So I find when I came in, I find obviously a coach who was just starting, in the football world. Obviously didn't know like the professional world, but was really willing to learn, to understand. So was like really onto the communication. For myself, for example, we exchange a lot. We had a good relationship, so he would ask my opinion on some tactic points, etc. And we exchange a lot. Someone who always been really pragmatic. That's how I would have described this coach, who would like wanted to get to a point A to a point B. So it's never been a coach who was obsessed with the possession of the ball, or like those obviously coach we have today was like is really possession based. He was more, I do remember like him, we're talking about like Diego Simeone, so those kind of thing, and it was probably adapted to where we at that moment as well. So I remember him like so talking about Atletico Madrid, having a reference about Dortmund at the time of Jurgen Klopp. So it's someone who really like high intensity runs, who and a lot of energy himself on the sideline, who's like passionate, who's really vocal, who like to was really living the game through, like you could tell him on the pitch. And then obviously progressed. I think he got more confident, understand the game. I think he studied a lot, to really become hard to beat. And I think that was like probably his best quality as a team. Like, his team are trying to be always hard to beat, and then give the forward player freedom to move and do what they're good at, but yeah, there's someone who's always been like try to be more communicative. Obviously at the AFCON it became more difficult because obviously he was covered it, for the last part
Yeah.
at the Cameroon game and others, and also through the years, obviously, it wasn't easy as well to handle the national team of Comoros. He went through all the difficulties as well, and he had also uh, a lot on his shoulder or a lot on his mind. A lot of fight and everything, and that's what also maybe push him of trying something new as well. Go to Mauritania. But it's someone who's like, I would say tactically was more like defending oriented minded first.
Mm-hmm.
Make sure we get hard to beat. Who would like tactically to be compact and then try to hit team and counter attack.
Mm-hmm. And in terms of his personality, what kind of, especially because you've been, like you said, you've been all over Europe with kind of some really, really top coaches. How do you compare him to a lot of those other guys, particularly because, he's been in such a small environment with kind of first amateur football in France and the Comoros, compared to some of the guys you've had in the UK or, Sweden or France, wherever?
It's very difficult to compare because it's like those coach I had obviously are daily basis because it's a day to day. So like with Amir Abdou obviously, and not even so we had many years together and everything, but it's for 10 days.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
2 weeks. A competition of maybe 1 month, like obviously the African Cup that was last time. So the work, what you're asking your players is totally different. So the attitude toward it, you don't have as much time. So maybe sometimes you don't even take the time because obviously on a daily basis, you're going to try to find out more about your players. You're going to think there you've got a group of 23, 26 players. You don't have time to find out about every individual, how they're feeling, being close to them, etc., because you've got only 10 days. But towards me, that's what I was to say, like towards me, we always have a honest relationships. Like we always exchange a lot. I think he had I've been fortunate. He had a really good confidence in me. So we would exchange a lot. But it's someone who's like calm outside the pitch. Who's like calm, who think a lot. He's a thinker. Who think a lot about the game. Someone who can or like joke when he needs to, like when it's like to try to relax. But at the start and even towards the middle, I think today he give maybe another expression, but I find Amir Abdou was like kind of like stressed and nervous towards the game.
Yeah.
Now, obviously, I see him from a little bit far, and I felt like maybe it's a little bit more calm. Like you felt like it's like, and that probably maturity. Knowing a little bit more. Having more knowledge, and more experience. So I find him probably a little bit more calmer, and I think that's what lead him to that success as well. He's having at the moment. But yeah, at the start we found like obviously a young coach. And I think that's totally normal. So like was like nervous around the game, was thinking about the game a lot. Like so those kind of things.
And kind of seeing when you having worked with him in with the Comoros, and then you see him going off to Mauritania, how do you see him kind of not like being in that different environment? How do you imagine him kind of performing? And clearly he's done well to qualify for the AFCON, and he did really well at the Chan with Mauritania. But when you think of him, he's only coached in this one small environment. What skills does he have, or how do you think he manages going into a different environment? What does that say about him kind of as a person?
Just confirm what I think about him, or about what Comoros people are. What I mentioned to you earlier is like going through the difficulty, manage to adapt, and like eventually with time impose yourself. Or like try to want to learn, and because I think he progressed a lot. Like I said to you, like as much being with us, being around that professional world, starting with us and everything. he improved and professional a lot through us, and of course through his quality of like willing to learn and
Mm.
like want to study the game, and etc. So seeing him going there through a different environment, I think like uh, it worked well for him because I think he through us he went through all the emotion. So
Mm.
starting with a lot of difficulty to eventually get the peak of what we want is like qualified for African Cup Nation. So what he did is like the top he
Yeah.
could have done, you know. So that probably give him a lot of confidence to think like, okay, what I'm doing is right.
Mm.
And as a coach, like I said, like he's a pragmatic. He's like someone who wants to have only one goal is to go from point A to point B, is
Mm.
to want to win games, to want to not lose game,
Yeah.
you know, and that's how I see him. He's someone who's there, who's gonna doesn't matter which team is gonna take, he'll be there to try to make them progress defensively to make sure they're hard to beat and push them. I think he's got that leadership. Sorry,
There is.
He's got that leadership, you know, on him. That's where he progressed a lot as well. That leadership to 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 believe we we're not going to lose today.
Mm.
You know, we're not going to lose today, and that's what took him probably where it is today and do well. I haven't followed, for example, like closely. I've just seen he's been doing well, but I haven't followed his games probably to see how they're playing or how they're doing, etc. But my impression, knowing him, I would see them being like this, being probably not considered a lot of goals
Mm.
and being pragmatic, like being really uh like how do you say efficient.
Yeah. Mm. And and that's such an interesting dynamic because, you know, like you're saying about him learning from you guys, because that's so rare, that situation, right? Like it's almost always, you know, you have the coach, the players are learning from him and the tactical side, blah, blah, blah. But because you know, for him, you are the guys who are coming from the professional side of things, and it's actually him learning. I think that says a lot, like, but you know, the humility, but also the desire to learn, to say, you know, actually, even if I'm the coach, I can learn from my players. I think that's a really interesting dynamic.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what I mean. Like when I said like he learned like from us, I think like we all learn from each other because that's the thing. We even so we were in a professional world, I would say, but at the end of the day, we're all new. We all
Yeah.
arrived. We all knew. We all discover the African football because at the end of the day, you had the professional world, you had like football thing, but none of us knew what was like the African football really
Yeah.
because we all in France, in Europe, so to coach ourselves players, so we just learn each other. So we try to give mission on what playing with different teammates and tactical and everything stuff, and he gave us that other side of him, like that humility, that leadership, you know, that that make us understand. Because that's the thing as well. I think that's where he was good at. Is like at the early stage, myself included, I'm someone who all my career as a midfielder or as my profile wants the ball.
Mm.
You know, and all players from Comoros usually were kind of small and everything. So we are like I said earlier, our abilities with the ball.
Yeah.
It's not so much without the ball. But really, an early stage, he insisted. Amir Abdou, the coach, insisted with us about the without the ball.
Yeah.
You know, being athletic, uh, not just on the physical, like contact wise, but on the running aspect. You know, high intensity running. So he really insisted on this early stage, and that's what he brought to the national team. He did, I think, he did really well at that stage because we were probably thinking like, no, we're just gonna play because that's our characteristics, that's our qualities, that's our ability. But without that aspect he brought, we wouldn't be here where we are today.
Yeah.
With that.
No, I think that's amazing. That's like, it's such an amazing story, but kind of him, you guys, the whole country. It's such an inspiration. And the kind of, I hope, like you said, like
with the kind of fighting that you guys have had to do, that things will actually be better in the long term, not just for your team, because obviously you guys were all on a journey together for those kind of 7-8 years, but actually then it's a platform to build on. And you know, and we see that, and like, you know, I think Africa presents such a unique opportunity in a way that, say, Europe doesn't, because Europe is so, everything is sanitized, everything is the same, you know, it doesn't matter what country you go to. But in Africa, there's so much more room to grow, because, you know, because of, like you said, the football is different, you know, there's so many more variables. And, you know, I think of even countries like Gambia, who've, you know, similar, really small, and have done so well, and, you know, are building on that. And, you know, even I think, you know, Kenya is an absolute mess, but Tanzania has done very well in the way they've developed even their women's side. And so I hope that the Comoros will do the same, because I think it's incredible. I don't think we appreciate outside of the country. I'm sure you guys do, but like, just what an achievement that was at the last AFCON. And I think it's got genuinely one of the most like incredible footballing achievements like ever. I think it's phenomenal.
It is.